How you like me now? I'm here to expose the lies, the schemes, yeah, the power that froze. I'm breaking chains, no silence allowed. Speaking for the people, I'm making you proud. From the streets to the suites, I've been in the fight. Shining through the dark, bringing truth to light. Leadership in action, and the time is ours. Rodney's on the mic, speaking truth to power. Speak on it now, let the truth unfold. Speak on it now, gotta break the mold. From the pain to the purpose, let the voices tower. Rodney W. Collins, speaking truth to power. I've seen the struggle, I've felt the strain, but silence in the face of wrong is the real pain. It's more than a fight, it's the courage to stand and build a better world with this strength of our hands. Leaders and liars, we're calling them out. For the ones without a voice, we're ending the doubt. Every word I speak, every action I take, it's about the truth and justice, no room for fake. Speak on it now, let your voice ignite. Speak on it now, stand up, take flight. From the ground to the towers, let the movement flower. Rodney W. Collins, speaking truth to power. Stand tall, speak loud, let the world take note. Power to the people, every word I quote. This is your moment, the time is here. Rodney's on the mic, making change crystal clear. Speak on it now, time to break the chains. Speak on it now, let the truth remain. From the silence to the spotlight, let the voices shower. Rodney W. Collins is speaking truth to power. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Rodney W. Collins Speak on the Show. I am Rodney W. Collins. First and foremost, giving honor to the God who allows me to come to you in this manner on a weekly basis. How's everybody doing out there? Hopefully everyone had, how do I say this, a good 4th of July. If you celebrate 4th of July, let's just start there. If you celebrate, and I'll get into that in a minute. But if you celebrate the 4th of July, hopefully you had a safe 4th of July and, you did everything you wanted to do. I got a good morning already. Sabrina Wheaton, good morning, cuz. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. So let's get these other formalities out the way real quick, y'all. Let's just go ahead and do this. I'm broadcasting live on the Rodney W. Collins channel on both YouTube and Facebook every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Like, share, subscribe, do what you do with all the other pages you follow. Let's get our viewership up, listenership up, however you want to call it. Let's get that up so we can continue doing what we do here on the Rodney W. Collins Speak on His Show. So, as you see, trying to adjust something here. As you can see, no button down today. I'm going back to a t-shirt today because I'm in one of the moods, y'all. I'm in one of those moods because there's some things I want to touch on that deal with the 4th of July, per se, Independence Day, as they call it. Independence Day. Reggie P. Rowe, my brother, good morning, appreciate you. Independence Day. And yeah, we're going to touch on that. Look like I said, that's something. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. You know, I can't be out here looking crazy. I'm representing Lucille Collins here, Lucille Whedon, excuse me. Lucille Whedon and, the family. Got to make sure everything's right. I don't know what that is. It ain't my nose, is it? Or was it in the screen? There we go. Okay, we good. I'm sorry. Y'all got to make sure everything's right, But as I was saying, when we talk about Independence Day, there's a lot of things that a lot of people, I seen some things posted. Still there. What's going on? I seen some things posted that, Brian Hoodie, good morning, my brother. Good morning. Appreciate you. I seen some things posted, and I seen one thing that said, happy 15 days after Juneteenth. Happy 15 days after Juneteenth, is what they call it. They didn't call it Independence Day. They say happy 15th day after Juneteenth. But I want to start off by saying this. I get asked a lot about why I don't celebrate Independence Day, July 4th. I've done enough reading to understand what July 4th is all about, what it meant at the time. And we're going to get into some of this later on, but I'm going to give you from my perspective on why I don't. I recognize, but I don't celebrate. You know, like some of y'all recognize Juneteenth, but you don't celebrate it. I've been doing this a long time, so this is not something I just decided to do. But I get asked this question because as a veteran and serving this country, people will ask me, how can you serve this country but not celebrate Independence Day? And what that really means to some people, and I got these things wrote down, and said, how can you fight for a country you won't romanticize? Well, I'm not romanticizing the country. I'm protecting the interests of the country for the people who look like me and the people that don't look like me, or all the people that are here in this country that I swore to uphold and defend the democracy of this country, the Constitution of this country. How can you salute the flag? I get asked that question as well. And they say, how can you salute the flag but not join the ritual of hot dogs, fireworks, and blind celebration? And I tell her, I served not for the myth. I served not about the mascots or people out here with the fake patriotism and all those type things. And like I said, I'll get into that a little bit later on, but I'm talking about me right now. And there's some other people that feel the same way that have served this country. Yes, I wore the uniform. Wore proudly. 21 and a half years. And I served 10 years in civil service for this country as well, with the Army and the Marines. So it's not that I don't love the country that I live in. It's not that. I love the concept of what this country is supposed to stand for everybody, which is why I chose to serve, amongst other things. But, you know, when you think about it. But when people get into this, how can you serve this country and not celebrate the 4th of July? It's just like saying, how can you say that you love, you know, your Hispanic people or your Latino people or the Mexican pride, but you'll celebrate Cinco de Mayo when you go out here on the holidays and drink the beer and eat the tacos and everything else. But during these deportations that they're doing and this mass deportation, you're silent. Or you talk about the other ethnicities in this country and you know that some of them are being deported wrongly, but you're silent. But some of the people that are the most silent are the ones who never served this country or have done anything for this country or for the rights of this country, are the loudest people to stand against deportations, Blacks, African Americans, in spite of the fact that we may have served or have served in this country, in this military, in some position or the other to stand for what's right. See, I don't call myself a righteous person. I call myself a person that does the right thing, tries to do the right thing in all cases. I fall short. But I never choose to look down on somebody else who may not have made the same choice as me or defend this country or the people in this country the same way that I do. But I do look down on those who feel that they have some type of superiority, not for what they've done for this country, just simply because of their melanin content or lack thereof. See, when you get into this, you have to step back for a minute and actually ask yourself, when we talk about Independence Day, when we talk about the signing of the Declaration of Independence, when we talk about Frederick Douglass say, what is the 4th of July to the Negro, and all the different things, and then you talk about then, and then you look at what's going on now, you have to ask yourself, what's the correlation? Oh, there's a lot. Because I guarantee, and I want to get into this a little bit later on, but I guarantee if I was to ask anyone out there to tell me exactly what is in the Declaration of Independence, they'll say one part of it. And that's the beginning. The beginning. The beginning part of the Declaration of Independence is what everybody knows. And it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's where they stop. But there's so much more that I'm going to dig into today to show you that history does repeat itself. History does repeat itself. And when I talk about serving, I don't bring this up to be braggadocious or anything like that about me serving the country. I bring it up to let you know you can have two opinions about how you feel about this country and still serve. Do I hate the country that I live in? No. Am I bothered by some of the things that the history of this country has done, but refuses to acknowledge? Hell yeah. So when you talk to me and you ask me why I don't celebrate the 4th of July, ask yourself, why do you celebrate the 4th of July? It's not about the fireworks. It's not about the barbecues. Independence Day is supposed to be for everyone. And we know in the Declaration of Independence, it wasn't. It wasn't. And it still isn't. So when you get upset, for those that get upset about someone saying they don't celebrate the 4th of July, but they acknowledge it because they're in this country and they understand what it's supposed to mean, check yourself. Check yourself and ask yourself, what are you doing to hold up what this country is supposed to be about? What are you doing to make sure that everyone in this country is afforded the same rights, the unalienable rights? What are you doing? So miss me with all that, and miss me with the fact that so you won't celebrate the 4th of July, Independence Day, but you'll celebrate Juneteenth. Yes, I will. Because Juneteenth recognizes me more than Independence Day. Juneteenth recognizes the fact that people that were done so wrong were finally freed on paper, by word, but not always by actions. That's why I celebrate Juneteenth. And that's why I recognize Independence Day, the 4th of July. So miss me with that. Miss me with that. But we're going to get into the show. I'm going to talk about some things today. Faye Jackson, my brother, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. I'm going to get into some things today dealing with this bill that came out. Also, the Declaration of Independence, Frederick Douglass, and there's what is the 4th of July to the Negro. And I want to get into, in my straight talk today, I want to talk about something that y'all been hearing on news. I touched on a little bit, but I didn't go into detail, and it goes off what I'm touching on right now. But I want to get into the Diddy trial. Not in depth, not right or wrong, but something I want you to think about now that the decision has been made, the jury has spoken. Something I want you to think about when you're choosing sides of whether he was rightly convicted, wrongly convicted, or otherwise. But we'll get into that a little later in the straight talk. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Saturday morning, y'all. You know what we do. Let's get into the news. Let's go. In the news. I forgot to take my thing off there. In the news. So everybody's heard the bill passed. It's what they call this big, beautiful bill passed through the Senate and the Congress and everything. And, there's a lot of things talking about cuts to Medicaid, cuts to the SNAP program, how it's going to affect a lot of people. But I think there's something that's dug down in there that deals with the Department of Education, which they're trying to eliminate, that I think everybody needs to hear about. So I want to specifically dig in on this point here. And it says, how Trump's big spending bill will overhaul repayment for millions of student loan borrowers. Because, Joe Biden had a thing in where he was excusing a lot of college debt that people had. And then they pushed back on that, talking about why is he excusing this? Because the rates were so high, and there was some nefarious things going on with the loans and everything like that. But now in this bill, Big Al, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. In this bill, millions of student loan borrowers are going to be affected because of the overhaul of the repayment system. It says Congress passed President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill on Thursday. It includes major changes to student loan repayment and caps on borrowing. It eliminates existing income-driven repayment plans, including SAVE, replacing them with just two options. It could soon get harder for student loan borrowers to get affordable monthly payments. And it said he passed the bill and everything. The bill eliminates existing income-driven repayment plans and replaces them with two less generous options, along with adding new restrictions on the types of loans parents and graduate students can take out. It also limits borrowers' abilities to place their loans on deferment if they're facing financial hardship. Now, what this is saying is, if you have a student loan and you're in some type of repayment plan according to what your income is, that's not going to be an option no more. Going by your income and what you make and what your loan payment is going to be is about to be nixed. So if you're making student loan payments, if you would agreed upon like $200 some a month or whatever you agreed on to pay it back, they're about to eliminate that. Because if your income is different, they're going to change all of this. It's not going to be income driven anymore to pay these loans back. And they're also going to affect how students apply for loans. And from what I've read in here, and I'm going to get to that, I think FAFSA is the name of it. I don't think that parents are going to be allowed to use their income as far as you getting a loan for education. And if you're in the lower level of income in this median income in certain states, and it's going to go by the state, and you don't reach that median income, you won't be able to get a loan. So the elimination of this department, the elimination of the Department of Education and these things they're changing as far as how you can pay for education are changing. Why? Because they don't want people to be educated. They don't want people to be able to go and get degrees. And by using this median income, the median income for the state that you live in, they're eliminating so many. And I don't like to use the word lower class, but I'm going to use it in this sense, lower class individuals who are attempting to get the education so they can further themselves as far as what their career is going to be. Now they're eliminating it. They're putting a number on how much you need to make in order to get a loan. Borrower advocates and Democratic lawmakers have said the bill will hurt Americans repaying their student loans. Senator Warren said in a statement that student loan payments will go up as a result of the legislation, and Natalia Abrams, the president of the advocacy group Student Debt Crisis Center, said that this dangerous bill abandons millions of borrowers, leaving them with few, often inaccessible repayment options and deepening their financial insecurity. Here's how the bill is set to impact millions of federal student loan borrowers. A student loan repayment overhaul. New student loan borrowers will face fewer available repayment options as a result of the spending bill. The bill eliminates existing income-driven repayment plans and replaces them with two repayment plans. The first option is called the Repayment Assistance Plan. It would set borrowers' payments at 1% to 10% of their income, depending on their income levels, with a minimum monthly payment of $10. Unpaid interest is waived under this plan, and any remaining balance will be forgiven after 30 years. It's less generous than former President Joe Biden's SAVE plan, which the bill eliminates. SAVE would have allowed borrowers with original balances of $12,000 or less to receive loan forgiveness after 10 years of payments. And it reduced payments on undergraduate loans from 10% to 5% of a borrower's discretionary income. The SAVE plan is blocked in court pending a final legal decision. And with the bill's passage, the 8 million borrowers enrolled in SAVE have between July of 2026 and July of 2028 to enroll in the new plan. The second option is a new standard repayment plan, which sets fixed payments for 10 to 25 years based on the borrower's original balance. While existing standard plans typically have a fixed repayment plan, this new plan's repayment period would vary based on the original amount borrowed. So there it is. You got two options. Two options if you have student loans in order how you're going to be able to pay them back. Now, this is what I was talking about. In addition to repayment changes, the bill takes on college accountability. It ensures that programs in which graduates don't earn more than the median high school graduate in their state will lose federal student loan eligibility. Median high school graduate in their state. If you're a graduate and you don't make what they call the median high school graduate rate of pay in their states, will lose federal student loan eligibility. The legislation also extends the Pell Grant to shorter term programs, which McMahon has previously pushed for. Now, what I'm getting from this, if you're in a state that you're making minimum wage, but the median income in that state for a high school graduate is not is not the minimum wage, you won't get a student loan. You won't get a student loan. Along with with fewer prepayment plans, the bill eliminates borrowers' ability to defer their student loan payments in the event of economic hardship and unemployment, leaving standard forbearance as the only option to delay payments. It also eliminates the Graduate Plus program, which allows borrowers at graduate and professional schools to borrow up to the full cost of attendance for their education. The bill retains the Parent Plus program, which allows parents to take on student loans for their kids' education, but places a $65,000 lifetime cap. So if your parents help with this program or with your schooling, there's a cap of $65,000 as far as what they can borrow for your education, for your kids' education, for your grandkids' education. You can only borrow up to $65,000. Does everybody know how much it costs for education now? For 4 semesters or 4 years of school, you're talking between $80,000 to $100,000 for an education in a college now, but they're capping it at 65. See, these are things they're eliminating that a lot of people are paying attention to. Yeah, we understand the SNAP, the Medicaid, it's going to be a big impact, but we're talking about education now. People are not going to be able to pay for an education like we have. We're going to get loans and everything like that, which is the reason why they wanted to eliminate the Department of Education, because that's what it goes through to get these loans. But by eliminating this Department of Education, now it goes to the states, but the states are not going to get funding. They're not going to get funding from the national level in order to fund these loans. And now you're going to have predatory lending again, which is a problem we ran into before, which is why the loan forgiveness was brought up by Joe Biden, because it was predatory lending and people were getting high interest rates on their student loans. Understand how important education is for a lot of people, and understand why they want to eliminate the fact of how you can get an education. The financial aspects of getting an education are all but gone for your kids, for your grandkids, for their kids, and so on and so forth, unless it's changed. Now, something else I've seen. Trump celebrates 4th of July by deporting veterans and their families. And this is how the story goes. A woman is lured to a public building, and she waits with her military veteran husband for some Politburo-like agent to give her a time to come back to get her papers in order. She decides to breastfeed their infant child. Just then, armed agents storm the couple, tear the baby from the mother, and place her under arrest. She is then put in a queue for deportation. Exactly what the couple was trying to avoid when they voluntarily showed up at their local government office. This is not some dystopian novel or narrative about times in the Soviet Republic or Nazi Germany. Nope. This was in Louisiana a few weeks back. This is Donald Trump's America. And this is an article I found online talking about how he's deporting veterans and their families. President Trump's administration are carrying out the cruelest and most sweeping mass deportation program in modern U.S. history. Yeah, we all know that. Acting at Trump's direction, ICE has detained and deported veterans, their children, their spouses, even those who served alongside us on the battlefield. This is being done under the guise of making America safe again, when statistically America has never been safer. In fact, the administration is destroying the families who actually do keep us safe. Trump's efforts to deport veterans and their families are not simply part of his broader immigration crackdown. They are a deliberate attack on service members and our veterans. In a February 2025 memo, the administration announced it will no longer exempt active duty military personnel, veterans, and their families from deportation while they pursue legal status. A complete reversal of prior U.S. citizenship and immigration services policy. For active duty families, this is especially devastating. Many service members meet their spouses overseas and are frequently relocated, making it extremely difficult to access a local USCIS office and begin the immigration process. Take Sejong Park. And I think I mentioned him on the show a couple weeks ago, a Purple Heart recipient and Army combat veteran who came to the U.S. as a child. He served honorably in the Operation Just Cause and was wounded twice. One was a gunshot wound to his back, temporarily paralyzing him. Like too many veterans, Park returned home with PTSD, struggling with addiction. He was convicted of a drug offense over 15 years ago. Park served his time. He stayed in compliance with immigration authorities. He built a life, raised a son, and tried to move forward. But just days before Independence Day, Trump's ICE told him to leave or be jailed. He self-deported to South Korea, exiled from the nation he bled and nearly died for. So I'm going to go back again. Why don't I celebrate Independence Day? As I said, I recognize it. Because if you can do this to a veteran, Park is at least the second Purple Heart recipient who Trump has attempted to remove from this country in his second term. Veterans across the country are watching as their parents, spouses, and children are swept up in raids. A father of 3 U.S. Marines was tackled at a landscaping job and arrested. And Jermaine Thomas, a man born on a U.S. Army base in Germany to a citizen father who died, was deported to Jamaica, a country he had never set foot in. It's not only veterans and their families getting the shaft for Independence Day. There's Saeed Nasser Nouri, an Afghan interpreter who spent a decade supporting U.S. troops. His brother was murdered by the Taliban because of that loyalty. He fled to the U.S. legally through a port of entry under humanitarian parole. But this month, at a routine court appearance, ICE agents arrested him. Now Trump's administration is fast-tracking his deportation, even as his asylum case remains unresolved. A fine reward for someone who lost his own brother to protect our brothers and sisters in arms. What does this say about America? What's it say? Thank you for your participation, but we don't need your services any longer. You got to go. Our diversity is what makes us strong, but Trump knows that he is a master at a divide and conquer method of governing. So much so there is much of the nation cheering the sick and reprehensible things he is doing to our veterans, allies, and their families this 4th of July. John F. Kennedy once said, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by. The silence of so many in both words and actions while our veterans and their families are being deserted is defensive. Is deafening. I'm sorry. It's deafening. See, this is where the water gets muddy for a lot of us. Where we see these things happening, and the people that served alongside of them, the people who served with them, the people that have served are silent. They're silent because they choose to uphold a person who wants to be a dictator and his vision for what make America great again is, compared to standing beside and for those who fought beside them to defend this Constitution for this country, with the promise that they would be a citizen at some time for serving. That's what they signed up to become, citizens. So they decided to serve the military for a fast track to become citizens. Not coming over on some kind of chain migration as Melania Trump's family did when she married Trump. Not some kind of, some education visa or what she can bring as far as how important she is, as far as what she knows is what, supposedly Melania Trump came on her education and what philosophy she brings to the United States. She came on a visa like that. But these people who actually went to war for this country to uphold its democracy don't get a second thought. This is where it gets disheartening. Now, people will say, well, if they'd have done it the right way, they did. And it didn't matter. And it doesn't matter. So for all you people out there saying, well, if they only did it the right way, that's just like saying to us when we see the George Floyds or the Rodney Kings or the Sandra Blands and all the ones we know that were murdered at the hands of police, if they would have only complied. If they would have only done it the right way. See how that works? See how when you say if they would have only complied, it doesn't make sense because they still met their death because the police officer didn't view them as a human being. If they would have only done it the right way, you see how that doesn't fit the narrative when these people were doing it the right way and you still chose to get rid of them or to deport them or send them to countries that they've never been to because you want to make it painful for them. I mean, I read an article where they're deporting people to Sudan who have no roots in Sudan. How and what is right about that? If you want to deport people because they're not here legally, okay. But send them to their country that their heritage and their background is with, not to a country they've never lived in where they know nobody. The reason they came here was to flee somewhere that wasn't safe. And you're sending them somewhere that knows nothing about them, that they know nothing about, which makes it unsafe. But I want to get into this in a minute. But let's go ahead and take a break real quick. This is Fellas, it's time to elevate your grooming game. Introducing Respected Roots, the premium beard care line designed with black men in mind. Because your beard isn't just facial hair, it's a statement, a symbol of confidence, style, and strength. All right, let's talk about keeping your beard sharp and on point. First step, sculpting. Fresh lines are everything. Keeping it clean and defined sets the foundation for a great beard. Once I've got the shape locked in, it's time to cleanse. The Respected Roots Beard Wash gets rid of dirt and buildup without drying out my beard. It leaves my beard feeling soft and refreshed. Next up, the beard oil. This is where the hydration magic happens. I massage it in, making sure it gets to the skin underneath. It keeps my beard moisturized and smelling fresh all day. And finally, the beard butter. This locks in all the moisture, smooths out any frizz, and gives my beard that healthy, polished shine. Look at this. It's soft, full, and ready to dominate. From sculpting to styling, Respected Roots has everything you need to take your beard to the next level. Gentlemen, your beard deserves respect, and respect starts with Respected Roots. Use the link to grab yours today and receive 15% off. Trust me, your beard will thank you. RespectedRoots.com/Rodney 55428. Welcome back. Rodney, RespectedRoots.com, Rodney 55 / Rodney 55428. That's how you can get your discount if you log in. Go there, RespectedRoots.com / Rodney 55428. Go there, log in, get the information you need. But I want to get into this because I mentioned the Declaration of Independence, and I want you to know this. But I also want to start with this because this has been brought up many times. But it's amazing how we don't educate ourselves, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm just telling you so you can understand. We don't educate ourselves to understand what the meaning of a lot of things are or how in depth things go when it comes to certain things that we've been conditioned to do. The Pledge of Allegiance when we were in school, the Star Spangled Banner, we hear it. You only hear the first verse. There's like 5 verses, but the one they also never want to talk about is the third verse where it says, "No refuge could save the hireling and the slave." They never bring that up in the Star Spangled Banner, but this is the national anthem. But however, when they say that at these sporting events like the Super Bowl and different things like that, they want to sing the African-American Black national anthem, "Lift Every Voice," there's an uproar. But you don't want to sing the third verse of what the Star Spangled Banner stands for, but you're upset about singing "Lift Every Voice and Sing." Come on, come on. What are we doing? But I go to the Declaration of Independence, and I want to bring this into light. Because as I mentioned before, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's where a lot of people stop. But it's a whole lot more in there, because if people remember the history of this country was created on the fact that they were fleeing the King of England, the King of Great Britain at the time. Because of the things he was doing to the people, they decided to flee and come, and then they decided not to discover America, but to make America what it is today, or what they thought it would be at that time. But there's things in the Declaration of Independence that are said about why they were fleeing and what they were getting away from that are relevant today if you listen and you pay attention. Because everything in this Declaration of Independence, because nobody really reads it per se, is what this administration is going back to. What that tyrannical king of Britain was doing, King of Great Britain, is the same thing in the same playbook that is going on in this country right now. I didn't know this. I just happened to read the Declaration of Independence because, I ain't had nothing else to do, but it opened my eyes to the things, and I'm going to give you some, and here we go. These are in the Declaration of Independence because it's long. And this is what they said about the King of England and why they were fleeing. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them, dealing with the Congress and the Senate at this time. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people will relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of the public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. Sound familiar? This is the Declaration of Independence talking about the King of Great Britain. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. Y'all don't hear me though. Y'all don't hear me. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing, ready, listen up now, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. New appropriations of lands. Remember he was talking about Canada? He was talking about Greenland? He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. Notice how they're trying to take the power away from the appellate courts and everything they're sending to the Supreme Court. Why? Because they have the numbers in the Supreme Court to overrule any rulings at the lower courts. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount in payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices, Doge, and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance, Doge. The people he's put in charge in his cabinet. He has kept amongst us in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. You know how you see on the news, they're talking about these so-called people have been deputized to be ICE agents and all this kind of stuff? These are standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He is affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He is affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. Remember when he sent the Marines out to LA? Because he said the police officers weren't doing their jobs, but they said they had everything under control. And now they're sending military to Florida for some reason. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Supreme Court, Congress, Senate, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, ICE, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. Pardon power. Pardon power. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. Tariffs. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. The big, beautiful bill. For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. Remember I told you a couple of weeks ago where I said that the way they're putting this in now is if you want to bring a lawsuit against them or the government, anyone, that you have to pay court fees that could be up to $1 million before they will even listen to the case. Yeah. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. Remember I just talked about sending people to Sudan and all these other places that they don't have any lineage to, just to make a point of getting them out of the United States because they're not citizens or they're illegal immigrants. For abolishing the free system of English laws in the neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. Now, this was the colonies. But remember, as I mentioned before, when he wanted to have Canada as the 51st state, when he was talking about going to Greenland, when he renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, dissolution, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. You know, they're talking. I'm gonna give you an example of who they're talking about in this, with these large armies of foreign mercenaries. Proud Boys, January 6 rioters, Oath Keepers, white supremacist organizations. He has empowered them to be able to do the dirty work for him at this time. He has excited domestic insurrectionists amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. As I mentioned, white supremacist groups. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Now, I'm going to say again, this is in the Declaration of Independence. Everything that I just read is within the Declaration of Independence, talking about the King of Great Britain at the time when they were trying to establish this United States of America, and in the acts that this tyrant that they say the King of Great Britain was doing to the people who now want to make these 13 colonies the United States of America. They were talking about the King of Great Britain. But if you listen to everything I read that's in this Declaration of Independence, these are the same actions that this administration are taking right now. But a lot of us don't know this because we have never read in its entirety the Declaration of Independence. And if anybody out there who is a supporter of this person, I would encourage you to read the Declaration of Independence in its entirety, to see what mirrors the things that he's doing in this country right now that doesn't separate him in any way from the King of Great Britain at the time for the reasoning of the people coming here and establishing these 13 colonies as the United States of America. But who am I? I'm no history buff. I'm not the most educated brother walking the face of the earth. But I can read, and I can see, and I can listen. And I know when I come across something that correlates to what's going on now, I can articulate it. And it doesn't take someone with a master's or a doctorate to understand exactly what this playbook is. He is reversing everything that the forefathers built this country to be. And remember, at this time, slavery was in full effect. So when you read that Declaration of Independence for someone that looks like me, I have to take it with a grain of salt because none of the things in there actually pertain to me. But let's go here. Frederick Douglass. What to the slave is the 4th of July? Frederick Douglass, you know, I've played it many times. You can go on YouTube and pull up the entire speech. James Earl Jones reread it at some time. You can pull that up where it's narrated by James Earl Jones. But it goes into the American hypocrisy. Douglas exposes the contradiction between the celebration of liberty and the reality of slavery. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. He praises the founding fathers, but condemns the nation for failing to extend those ideals to Black Americans. He calls the celebration of freedom a sham for those still in bondage. Moral indictment. Douglas doesn't just critique policy, he indicts the nation's conscience. Scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed. We need the storm, the whirlwind, the earthquake. He demands emotional and spiritual reckoning, not just legal reform. He calls out religious institutions for complicity in slavery. Douglas doesn't end in despair, he ends in hope. I do not despair of this country. The arm of the Lord is not shortened. He believes in the power of truth and activism to transform society. He urges Americans to live up to their founding principles. Let me stop there for a minute, because this is something that we have seen said by our leaders over and over and over again. When will this country stand up to the principles in which this country was founded on? We've heard Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King say it in speeches. We've heard Malcolm X say it in speeches. Frederick Douglass said it when he did this speech on what is the 4th of July. What to the slave is the 4th of July? I've said it many times on here. This is where, for me, and I didn't articulate it this way, but it stands firm. I don't celebrate the 4th of July. I recognize it. Just for this, when is the United States going to stand up for what the founding fathers went for? Everybody, not excluding people, but for everyone in this country. Frederick Douglass warned against forgetting the slaves' pain. Today, you got book bans and curriculum restrictions as an attempt to silence Black history. He warned against this back in 1776. This is 2025. Books are being taken off shelves. Yeah, we might not even hear Frederick Douglass's name anymore. We still have systemic racism, police brutality, mass incarceration, racial profiling. The 13th Amendment's exception clause still allows involuntary servitude as punishment for crime, which is modern slavery in prisons. The pushback against DEI, voting rights, gerrymandering, ID laws continue to dilute Black political power. Redlining, when they get to doing the redlining as far as the states and redlining as far as being able to rent apartments and all these different things we can talk about. Economic inequality, the wealth gap between Black and white Americans reflects centuries of exclusion from land ownership, education, and capital. It remains visible in housing, healthcare, and employment disparities. But something I found very interesting also. Is these words that Thomas Jefferson said. Thomas Jefferson wrote these words in his notes on the state of Virginia, primarily between 1781 and 1784, with the final version published in 1785. It's called the Query 18. Query 18. And it says, where Jefferson reflects on slavery's corrosive impact, not just on the enslaved, but on the moral fabric of the enslavers and the nation itself. It wasn't a speech. It was a deeply personal and philosophical document originally written in response to questions from a French diplomat. Jefferson used it to explore everything from geography and agriculture to race, liberty, and education. That quote in particular is one of the most haunting indictments of slavery ever penned by a founding member. And it says as such: God, who gave us life, gave us liberty. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed the conviction that these liberties are the gift of God? Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that his justice cannot sleep forever. Commerce between master and slave is despotism. Nothing is more certainly written in the book of fate than that these people are to be free. Establish a law for educating the common people. It is the business of the state and on a general plan. And I went on and I looked at some things and I broke it down this way of where Jefferson was at this time. And it says, on liberty as divine design. Jefferson begins with a bold claim: liberty is not man-made, it's God-given. This isn't just poetic, it's foundational. He's saying freedom isn't a privilege granted by government, it's a birthright. But here's the tension. How can a nation claim divine liberty while denying it to millions? Today, we still debate whose liberties are protected. From voter suppression to reproductive rights, liberty is often filtered through power, not principle. Segment 2, the fragile foundation. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed the conviction that these liberties are the gift of God? Jefferson warns, if we forget that liberty is sacred, we risk turning rights into privileges. Rights into privileges. When freedom becomes transactional, it becomes fragile. And when we disconnect morality from governance, injustice becomes policy. In the modern day, the erosion of civic trust and moral clarity in politics, the rise of disinformation and apathy towards systemic inequality, the danger of forgetting that justice is not optional, is foundational. And then he mentions, indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that his justice cannot sleep forever. This is Jefferson's reckoning. He knows the system is unjust. He fears divine accountability, not just for the enslavers, but for the nation itself. In today's day, in the modern day, we tremble today when we see unarmed Black men killed, when we see families torn apart by poverty and policy. Justice may be delayed, but it's never dormant. The tremble is still felt in courtrooms, classrooms, and communities. See, this is where Jefferson started reflecting on his thoughts on slavery and so on and so forth. But they don't talk about these things. They don't bring this up, that the forefathers started questioning their stance on slavery and enslaving people and what it was all about, and how, and I want you to remember what it says in here, how slavery not only affected the enslaved, but the slave master, the people holding slaves, as far as this is where that white supremacy comes into play. This is where I'm better than you because I control you, or I did control you, comes into play. See, history has a funny way of letting us know where we fall short and where we're repeating ourselves. And everything that I read between Jefferson and what Frederick Douglass said, and even in the parts of when I talked about the Declaration of Independence, it's not by chance. It's not by chance that what I read in that Declaration of Independence is never talked about. Because if it was, we would have seen the writing on the wall that this day was coming that we're in right now. That everything that's being done in this country right now is a direct reflection on what the King of Great Britain at the time was doing to those people that caused them to flee. And now it's happening right here, right now. And we have so many people out here that are so complicit. I always want to use that word. So complicit in their thinking, they don't see it. And it's not that they don't see it, they don't want to see it. They don't want to see it. Because if they see it, then that means that's a sign of admitting that they understood what was going on. It's like that thing, they do that experiment and they ask the question, stand up in a room full of white folks, and they say, stand up, and they stand up. And then they ask them, sit down if you would trade places with a black person. Nobody sat down. And I can't remember her name, but she so eloquently said, so if you didn't sit down because you would trade places with a black person, that means you know, and you are very aware of the things and the battles that black people fight on a daily basis that you don't want to be a part of. You don't want to be a part of it. You won't change places with them, but you're also complicit in the fact of not speaking out about it. It's not that you don't know, it's that you don't care because it's not affecting you. Yeah, exactly. So when I say these things, when I talk about these things, I always put this in here, not that I need to, because I want to. Because I want to. My love for black people does not symbolize my hate for white people. Me loving my people does not symbolize that I hate anybody else. I love my people because of who we are and what we stand for and how we have persevered through everything. That's why I love my people. But when I speak up for my people, when I speak about the inequalities and the things that go on in this country against my people, that's not saying anything against white people. It's just saying that I recognize what I've been through and what my people have been through up to this day, and I'm going to stand on raising them up in spite of everything that is going on. And just because I say I love my people, don't mean I hate anybody else. I may not agree with some of the things you do, but there's no hatred in my heart for anybody because I wasn't raised that way. I was raised to accept people for who they are until they show you who they aren't. But that's how we're raised. Well, you have some nationalities, some people that are raised to hate people just because of their melanin content. It's not how I was raised. Not how I was raised. Not how many of us were raised. But we have to stand for something or we'll fall for anything. Let's go. Straight talk, straight talk, straight talk. Let's get into this. I know this is going to transition a little bit from what we've been talking about with the Independence Day and all the different things that we talk about. But I want to get into this because it's something that I really need to talk on. Her name is Jane Elliott. Thank you very much, Faye Jackson. I appreciate that. I couldn't remember her name. I always lose sight of her name whenever I talk about her, but I appreciate that. But I want to talk about this because there's been a lot of people that have been so engrossed in what has gone on with the Diddy trial. The Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Brother Love, whatever his nicknames are, that have been so engrossed in it. And then there's been different feelings about the final verdict, different feelings about the people that testified against him. All the things you can think about that we go through as our emotions, and people watching this are people of color who have seen the justice system be unjust at different times and everything like this. But I want to touch on something different that caused pause for me when I was reading a lot of different things of how people felt about this trial. And I want to start it off with this and say, I don't do comparisons. I do facts. I don't do comparisons. I do facts. And I want to say it this way, and I wrote this out, so I'm going to read it. And I'm going to stop in certain places, but I'm going to read this. And my question to seeing some of the comments about Cassie Ventura, she must have enjoyed it because she stayed, and If she didn't want to be there, she should have left, and all these different things that get brought up about the victim. Let's just say the victim. Whether it's male or female, let's just go here. Whether it's male or female. But it's all brought up about the victim. She looked like, or the text messages say she enjoyed the freak offs, and she enjoyed these male prostitutes and all the things you can think of, and no regard to the fact that they seen this woman get beat in front of an elevator, or nobody knows everything that went on because that was just one video they seen. But I want to ask this question, and I want to ask it in this way for all those people who are asking the question of why she didn't leave or any of those things. And I'm going to say it like this. Would you see it differently if it was yours? What if the victim was someone you know? Your sister, your brother, your cousin, your best friend? Would you still shrug when the perpetrator walks with a slap on the wrist? Would you still debate whether the pain was real? Or would you be begging the world to stop making excuses? In this Diddy trial, we saw clearly some folks were so focused on who he is that they couldn't make space to see who they were. The women, the men, the survivors, the silence they had to walk through. Instead of compassion, some got skepticism. Instead of support, they got side eyes and conspiracy theories. It's easier to rationalize when it's distant, when the victims are strangers, when the pain isn't tied to your last name. Would you clap for lesser charges? Would you say at least he got something? Or would you demand the system to show the same outrage you feel in your bones? See, justice doesn't just live in the courtroom. It lives in how we talk about survivors. It lives in the questions we ask or the ones we ignore. And maybe the real problem is this. We've seen so much injustice. We've forgotten how to hold compassion long enough to see the whole story. We haven't seen the whole story. So I ask you to look at this as not just a casual observer, but I want you to look at it as someone who could one day, God forbid, who could one day be in it. Your sister, your brother, your cousin, your friend, someone close to you. And I want you to ask yourself, if the victim was someone you love, would you still minimize their pain? Would you still cheer for a compromise? Because in a world where justice feels rare, empathy for victims shouldn't be. I wanted to bring this up because just like in the case, and I'll go back, of O.J. Simpson, we celebrated. Let's just be honest. There were a lot of us that celebrated the fact that he was found not guilty for the murder of his ex-wife. We've seen so much injustice that we don't know what justice truly looks like. And while we're celebrating O.J. Simpson being freed, while we got people out here celebrating the fact that, Sean Combs is not going to serve the amount of time they were going after him for, and all the different things that we, we find as wins per se, we lose sight of the victims. I'm an R. Kelly fan. I've said it and I never will deny it. But we've lost sight of the victims in that trial as well. We don't know what those people are still dealing with from whatever was done to them, from what we know, what we were told, and what's the truth. But as I ask this question again, what if it was someone you love? Would you be questioning the fact that Cassie Ventura stayed? Would you be questioning if it was just a payday? Or would you be more concerned about the trauma that she's dealt with or he's dealt with that may have gone through this? See, this is where we as a community sometimes see wins in the wrong way. When we see the justice system maybe do the right thing, we focus on that rather than who's affected by what was done. When we see a brother walk because the evidence wasn't all there, we relate back to all the people I've talked about on this show who are wrongly convicted that served 20, 30, 40, 50 years for something they didn't do. We feel it's a trade-off and a balancing act because they got them, but they didn't get him. Justice is blind. Yeah, justice is blind. But why do we choose to be blind along with the justice system? See, I know all of us, and I'm going to stick with the word all of us, were raised on what's right and what's wrong. All of us know what's right and know what's wrong. And to say that justice is blind, yeah. But we know when injustice is being done. And injustice is being done to the victims. In this case, by the way we're responding to what the sentence was and not taking into account the damage and the trauma that's been done to the victims in this case. Now, I only bring it up at this time because this case was so highly publicized. But it happens every day. It happens every day. And I'll just ask this question. Like I said, I don't do this for comparisons. I do it as facts. I do it as facts. Imagine I have an island. And I'm taking young girls, young women there, and doing whoever knows what to these young women. And I have a book and flight records that shows everybody I've ever taken to this island. And it shows through research that I participated in the acts, or you participated in the acts when you flew with me to this island. And there's been lawsuits by some of the victims on this island against me and the people in the book. Would you care? Or would you only care if one of the victims that I took to that island was a loved one? Which way? See, we've been called using the word victimhood for so long that we forgot how to care about the victims. Because they say when we bring up slavery, we're using the victimhood label. See, there are certain things that we have to step back and reassess our moral compass when it comes to these things. Now, I didn't listen to the trial. No. Because for me, I don't like to hear those type of things that go on in this world. The taking advantage of people, the victims being accused of money grabs and so on and so forth, or they liked it, that's why they stayed, and all these. I don't like to hear all that. But what I want to understand is why we celebrate. I'm just going to say celebrate. The not guilty charges of a person, but don't concentrate on what they were found guilty of. We got to get better. We got to get better. Because as I mentioned, if one of your loved ones was a victim, how differently would you look at everything that has been said? Or would you even comment on what's being said about the victims? Faye Jackson, I hear you and I agree, too much said. Don't forget the fact is she got paid $30 million. Just saying, which is part of the problem. Which is part of the problem. And I'll say it this way. $30 million for the pain and suffering that you went through, it doesn't mask those sleepless nights. It doesn't mask the trauma. It doesn't mask any of that. But that's where we in society have concentrated and tried to put a monetary value on my worth as a human being in this world. $30 million doesn't give me back my life. $30 million doesn't fix the trauma. $30 million doesn't take away the beatings. Doesn't take away any of that. Just allows me to live a different type of lifestyle. But what kind of lifestyle do you live when you still have that trauma? And I'll put it in a term where a lot of people can understand, and Faye Jackson, you can understand this too. There are a lot of us who have served this country and suffer from PTSD. And the VA, you go and do your claim and everything, and they give you some money. They give you a certain percentage. That's what your VA check is going to be, your monthly VA payment's going to be. But that check does not take away the trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder that you suffer from. That money they give you doesn't cure those sleepless nights. Doesn't cure those nights when you wake up and have an episode because you're having a flashback on what happened. That check doesn't clear up everything that happened to you to cause the PTSD from the start. Money doesn't cure what's wrong with me, not only mentally, but emotionally and affecting my family on a daily basis. So when we talk about she made $30 million. Well, she got $30 million for pain and suffering, but the pain and suffering doesn't stop because she got $30 million. Just like the PTSD symptoms and the things that go along with that don't stop because the VA tells you you're 100% disabled, total and permanent. The after effects are still there and you will still suffer. So when we try to put a monetary value on the suffering, I think we fall short. Because money can't heal. Money cannot heal those wounds. Money can't heal war wounds. Money can't heal the things you've seen in war. Those visions don't go away just because someone puts a dollar sign in front of your face. Just because you got a check for the rest of your life that comes in every month, that does not eliminate and erase all the trauma that you dealt with. But that's just my opinion. Do with it what you feel you want to do with it. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up for today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I thank y'all. I appreciate y'all. But I'll say it this way. Jacqueline Diggs Barnett, correct. Excellent analogy, bro. Appreciate that. I'm going to say it this way. What is the 4th of July to the Negro? Resonates with me all the time. I have a flag. I have 2 flags hanging out front in shadow boxes that were presented to me for my service to this country. As I said in the beginning, do I love this country? Of course. No one can ever question my love for country. You can question it, but I know where I stand. However, there's a certain part, and I want to make sure I find this because I want to make sure I read this. Because before we close, I want to say this. Hey, Jackson, well said. Appreciate you, bro. There's always this visual of what a patriot is in this country. What a patriot. They call these people patriots. They throw patriot out there so quick. You're a patriot, they're a patriot, they're a patriot. But the first thing I want to tell you is I've never seen any visuals, and somebody correct me if they've seen it because I've never seen it. Any visuals of a person that looks like me being symbolized as a patriot. Ever in my lifetime. If you've seen it, let me know. Correct me. But I've never seen it. But here's what a patriot is. A person who vigorously supports their country and is prepared to defend it against enemies or detractors. But here's the twist. Defending a country means defending its people, not just its symbol. Defending its people, not just its symbols. Supremacist. A person believes that a particular group, especially by race, religion, or sex, is superior and should dominate society. Supremacy isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides behind flags and slogans, pretending to be patriotism. Y'all hear that, right? Pretending to be patriotism. And this is something else that is said. You can wrap yourself in the stars and stripes. You can mount the flag on a truck, salute it on camera, and even wear it across your chest. But if your patriotism ignores suffering, if it looks away when families are ripped apart by deportation or shrugs when neighbors lose their health care, then what exactly are you loyal to? The core message I want you to get out of this is this. Fake patriotism is performative. It's hollow when it clings to symbols but discards humanity. The flag becomes a prop, not a principle, when the people it represents are denied dignity. Patriotism should mean fighting for equity, holding leaders accountable, and demanding justice for all, not just for those who fit a preferred narrative. So I'm going to ask this question. And feel free to ask other folks in your travels when they portray to be a patriot. Are you a patriot or someone cosplaying supremacy under the guise of national pride? Are you a patriot
or just someone cosplaying supremacy under the guise of national pride. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb like I usually do. The limbs get a little shaky, but I'm going to still go out on them. Most of the people that we hear, see, and they identify as being patriots are in fact not patriots. The supremacists. Because they're cosplaying being a patriot by waving the flag, having it hang from their house, t-shirts, MAGA hats, all the different things you can think of that they think symbolizes patriotism is all erased the moment you ask them how they feel about immigration, reparations, Black people, affordable health care, anything that is being eliminated at this time will expose to who they are to their core. Patriot or supremacist. And I want to read those two definitions to you one more again. Not one more time, but one more again. Patriot, a person who vigorously supports their country and is prepared to defend it against enemies or detractors. But here's the twist. Defending a country means defending its people, not just its symbols. Supremacist, a person who believes that a particular group, especially by race, religion, or sex, is superior and should dominate society. Supremacy isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides behind flags and slogans pretending to be patriotism. So I'm going to ask you again. Has anyone ever seen someone or anyone with melanin content being identified or represented in this country as a patriot? I'll leave you to look for it. I'll leave you to think about it. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I'll see y'all again next week. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely, keep your faith in God. I'll be back next week to give you some more thought-provoking content. I love y'all, and I'm out. Peace.